Howdy, folks. Happy Thursday. Sorry we were off today, but logistics. Russ was in New York City. I was in Toronto. So it was sort of tough to do a show, but we're back, and we have Anthony in transit, looking like the headless horse, or looking like the head from the Headless Horseman. But we'll start with the pre-show. Go ahead, Russ.
So back in the day, my first book that got published was a book called Strike 3, and I wrote about the 94 strike and about the replacement players with Nico Riesco, who I do the game with Mike. And Nico had a lot of dealings with Donald Fear and specifically Mark Belanger, too, who used to be a part of the PA.
Yeah.
And so I got to learn about a lot of the inner workings and just how things, went with labor and all of that stuff. We dug into the Donald Fear stuff, just baseball in general, because I think I've lived through most of their labor stoppages. I think just one was before I was around. So anyhow, now we look at this one. I have to tell you, nothing they do on social media is going to matter. Players could come out with these blank profile pics, and MLB, their teams could scrub anything they want off their websites, which they did, which I feel bad for the writers, because the writers are the ones that get screwed there, because now all those stories that they worked on for this year, last few years, they've taken them down. So MLB's website now is full of like pictures of their puppies and ridiculous stuff. They're going to do this for a month. I'm not even going to worry about it. They negotiated for 7 minutes. This could go a long time. Don't get me wrong, but I'm just saying nothing's going to happen in December. That's my basic point.
Yeah, honestly, I don't think anything is going to happen until February. Because
and that may be true.
Yeah, I mean, there's really no pressure on either one of them until it gets closer to spring training, and then at that point you're going to have pressure from both sides. You're going to have owners worried about what money that they do make in spring training, but more about getting their players ready for the season. And you're going to have a lot of free agents. And we had the big names out there signed, but there are still some other big names that haven't signed. And they're going to say, where the hell are we going to end up? And these guys are going to end up, potentially taking short-term deals because they don't want to take pennies on the dollar, Anthony, for, a guy like Freddie Freeman or a guy like Correa. They could get pigeonholed into a shorter term deal because they don't see the big offers out there. And that's not something that they really want. So, I mean, I think that there's probably going to have to be some sort of settlement in this in February. Otherwise, I think there's going to be problems on both sides.
Yeah, I would concur in that. And again, I think that will be the pattern in a lot of cases here is that if this does go long, you see far more likely these guys looking at 1-year deals, and they could be looking at, again, so if you're going to do a 1-year deal, you're probably going to try to get for the balance for a contending team, which is going to eliminate, I think, some other teams that might have been in the market for certain players like a Trevor Story or anybody else along those lines, or Kyle Schwarber or whoever. They'll look at it and say, okay, if I got a 1-year deal, and I can maximize myself, I'm going to try to get to a team. They say that's free agent logic anyway.
Yes.
To try to get there, but you're also looking for long-term stability. Well, if there isn't, at least early on, you're going to go a team that you think is going to win, especially for any of these veteran players like a Freeman. And you never know; it could be a case where they sign the 1-year deal, they see how they like it there, and then stay long-term. Everybody's individual situation.
I mean, for Freeman, as an example, I could see him signing a 1-year deal and going back to the Braves. I could.
I could see that happening in this circumstance, and if Atlanta's still got a good roster and potentially might have a chance at back-to-back titles, and then you have your legacy in Atlanta, and then you can move on with your big free agent contract. Absolutely.
And I could see a player like Anthony Rizzo, who finished the year in New York, signing a short-term deal with the Yankees, or I know Story has a relationship with DJ LeMahieu going back to Colorado. They're friends. So stuff like that, if it's a 1-year thing. You're right. I think that those players could go to contenders if they're forced to take lesser money. They would rather go someplace where they have a chance to win a World Series and show their wares in a postseason, and then be able to use that and sell that on the market. So, we'll see. But anyway, let's start the show. We got some things to discuss. Hello, Hockey World. Today is Thursday, December 2nd, 2021.
I'm Anthony Mangione from Sunrise Philly Magazine.
Russ Cohen from Sportsology.
And I'm Michael Agello from windy Buffalo, and this is the Hockey Buzzcast here on HockeyBuzz.com. I'm glad it's windy today as opposed to yesterday when I was driving over the St. Catharines Skyway and Burlington Bridge. Those are not fun when it's windy. Okay, we'll start with this because this seemed to get a lot of traction on social media this morning. Eric Macramella reported, and he's from Forbes magazine.
For his colleague, O'Hazian, I think his name was.
Yeah,
he was
Michael.
Report,
yeah,
and then
Michael,
Macramella amplified it.
Right.
Mike Ozanian was the. He says as per my Forbes colleague Mike Ozanian, the Arizona Coyotes are for sale again, with idea of buyer eventually moving team to a new arena in Houston. This was cracked back on rather swiftly by the Coyotes, as reported by Craig Morgan, who said in a statement, this a statement from the club, "This is false, totally false. We're not selling, we're not moving. The Coyotes are 100% committed to playing in Arizona." Russ, methinks they doth protest too much.
Yeah, I mean, if I had a chance to talk to them right now, my first question would be, okay, where are you playing next year? Where's your agreement? They don't have one. And
yeah, they don't have an agreement. They don't have a building in place. They don't have a plan for a building in place.
Nope.
This thing.
None of that. It's all in the ether. And
you're not going to take their word for it?
No, I'm not. I am actually not, Anthony. I know that sounds crazy, but if they don't have an agreement by June, that team's moving. Like, it's just that simple. It doesn't matter what they say.
Well, I mean, okay, if we remember, the last report was there was a proposal for a development in Scottsdale, Arizona. All it was a plan, not like a shovel in the ground, not like, not an idea of like when a building. I mean, it is not even been approved. So, that is so. I mean, now what I think might be getting things moving here in one direction or the other, Anthony, is the fact that the sale of the Penguins went through a couple days ago, and the sale number was 900 or in the neighborhood of $900 million. If the current owners of the Coyotes who bought this team for pennies on the dollar can flip this team and get it for something close to that $900 million,
they won't get anything close to that.
Well, Russ,
you don't have a rink. They don't own the rink.
Right.
They can't get close to that.
Russ, you're talking about if the intention is to sell and move.
No, I get it. They're still not going to get $900 million. They're not going to get. They're lucky if they get $750. We got to be real about it.
Well,
the Penguins are. It's a lot better.
My theory on this is the fact that I agree with Michael in terms of the fact that I think the Penguins thing is certainly, if this is I think there was probably maybe a quiet feeler out there. Yeah. Possibly to see, okay, this is what the Penguins got. Let's see what we can get. And if we're looking to divest, but maybe the intention was they were trying to do this quietly. And now that it's out there, we're welcome to plausible deniability, Bill.
Yeah. And also you got to remember the Penguins is a known fan base. You're going to, let's say, Houston, which is an unknown still. So, like, you can't get the same amount. They won't. But they'll get a good amount. And then that's what's going to end up happening is if they don't want to be the guys that move the team because they have businesses in that state, then they'll sell it to somebody who will. But it's going to happen.
Now, I can't find what the amount was that what they sold for, but the current owner now is Alex Morello. And he had bought out, I think his name was Barraway.
Yeah.
I don't think it was anything close to 750, but if they can get 750 and turn hundreds of millions of profit and bail themselves out of this, I mean, right now things are at loggerheads. They're not going to be able to play in Gila River Arena. The organization is a disgrace to the league right now because they have a bunch of rentals and hole fillers and guys who are over the hill. They're clearly tanking to get Shane Wright or Connor Bedard or Mishkov or whoever comes out in the next couple drafts, which, is not a bad plan to do. But the problem is they've done it on steroids. I mean, they're just an embarrassment. They're
trying to sell a stripped down Lexus. I mean, they don't have a lot of great players, and they don't have a lot of them in the queue either. So again, you have to look at that too. And so, yeah.
Did you say a stripped down Lexus? This is more like a stripped down Mercury Cougar.
No, you can't sell a Mercury Cougar for high money. They're going to get a high profit because, again, someone's going to say, I can do this in Houston and make some good money. But no, it's better than a Mercury. I don't think Mercury's around anymore, Mike.
Yeah, Mercury's around, isn't it?
Are they?
I think so. Ford, Lincoln, Mercury.
Mercury's been gone for quite some time.
Yeah.
It's basically, I think it's just Ford and Lincoln.
It's Ford and Lincoln.
Yeah.
So sorry, Michael, you can't use the Mercury example because who's going to buy it?
Okay, a Ford Pinto then.
Who's going to buy that?
Nobody.
Just because you don't like the franchise here, Michael.
I don't care either way about the franchise. I care about the league.
Your commentary says otherwise.
I care about the league, and this is an embarrassment to the league. So that's why. And it's not only it's an ongoing embarrassment. It's been an embarrassment for over a decade. So, just move the friggin' team. If you move it to Houston is a top 7 or 8 market in the United States. It geographically,
and they've already been moved in division. They don't even have to change.
Right, geographically, it makes sense.
Somehow that's all managed to work out.
And as I've said before, if the NHL was concerned about having a Southwest outpost, they already got that with Vegas now.
Yeah, and right. the only thing that makes a lot of sense in terms of hesitancy about Houston, and Elliot Friedman brought it up today, is the fact that the policy of the NHL is whenever possible that they want their teams to own the buildings. And in Houston, if they move into the same building as the Rockets, even if it's a different owner, I mean, because apparently he's not really enthused right now about buying an NHL team, that they would be tenants. Now, right. they could be tenants for a few years, but why would the owner of an NBA team, unless he's being overpaid?
He likes hockey, that's why.
No. He does. But if say he doesn't want to buy the team, Russ. Say, and the NHL team wants to rent and be a tenant for 4 or 5 years while they build their own building. Well, why is he going to do that? Because that building is going to be in competition with him for concerts and other things. He's probably not going to want to do that. So that's why Quebec makes more sense. But then you have
Quebec, the finances are bad. Again, you're losing 20% on your payroll just for making payroll. Like, it's not a good way to start. And the league's not going to do it. Quebec will get a team someday. But it's also when their economy gets a little better.
One other note in regards to franchises and them potentially being sold. Patrick Johnston, who we had on the our show on the Off the Post.
Post Radio, yep.
He reported, because Vancouver played Ottawa yesterday, that Eugene Melnyk, all of a sudden is putting out feelers out there regarding potentially selling the Senators. Would that be because the Penguins got $900 million?
No, I think it's because his arena deal downtown is dead. That's why.
Well, we haven't heard
it. He's a guy that's got debt. He needs to sell it so he can make money and pay off the debt. He thought he was going to get a new rink. He hasn't. He thought he could string this team along and put some veterans in and they'd win, and they haven't. So I think he's probably looking at the tea leaves here and saying, all right, it's not exactly gone the way I said it was going to go, and it's going to take longer. And it would. You're talking about another 3-4 years until there may be going to be a serious playoff team.
Okay, let's go to some of the games last night. We'll start with the one that you were at, Russ, and you were focusing on, Anthony, the Flyers and the Rangers. The Rangers win 4-1. The Flyers is it 7 in a row that they've lost now?
It is winless. We refer to it as winless in 7, but in reality, it's the 7-game losing streak.
Okay. So,
no wonder there's a point somewhere in the mix there.
And this on the heels of the state of the club that Chuck Fletcher, press conference.
I mean, again, we're at the quarter pole of the season, so this was something that, again, but again, it's magnified when your team is in the throes of this kind of a skid.
So, Russ, what did you observe of this Flyers team on the road against a team that is red hot and playing really well?
I observed that they played, I would say for the entire game, like 10 minutes of good hockey. For the entire game.
10.
I'm going with 10. And the problem is, we know about the obvious problems, right? There's some little things that they're doing, though, that really make it hard for them to win. First off is, on defense, they're instantly giving too much space. The Rangers had so many passing lanes, and with the guys that they have, it's crazy. Like, when they went up 2-0, basically Gallant said, Panarin, get back out on the ice, and they almost got a third goal because they could just see there was so much space out there, right? So that's one problem. The other problem is, if you're going to play dump and chase, you better be the faster team so you actually can retrieve the puck. They have no puck possession time whatsoever. The minute it got through the neutral zone, the Rangers were right up there, and if they dumped it in, they were the ones retrieving it, 8 out of 10 times. And so those two things are really recipes for losing hockey, and I don't know why they won't leave the dump and chase. Like, it's not working for this team. They don't have the personnel. I don't get that.
They're still playing again. I think they're still in Elaine's beloved 2-1-2 check system.
Yeah,
they don't have the personnel to play it. Elaine wants to play it, but it just isn't working.
No.
Several areas, Mike, for me that I kind of brought this up before in conversation was they don't have the personnel to play this system. They started this game with Ivan Provorov and Nick Seeler paired. Then they begin to rotate the D pairs, which in my mind it's one thing to rotate forward units. When you start rotating D pairs, it's a recipe. It's an absolute recipe for disaster.
Yeah.
The second problem Philadelphia has, because they're trying to cheat up on the play. I had this, I asked this question of Travis Konechny a couple weeks ago about Philadelphia's predilection for looking for stretch passes a lot, and asking whether or not that was part of the game plan. Travis said no, but they were looking for, opportunities to do so. But I'm noticing it quite a bit, that they are cheating up on the play, and there's too much gap. And the one thing that concerned me last night about Alain Vigneault's press conference was he placed the onus on Scott Lawton for making the turnover and not Kevin Hayes, who I will give a little bit of a mulligan to.
Yeah, he was not 100%.
But Travis Konechny completely exiting the zone.
Yeah.
But somehow that becomes Scott Lawton's fault.
Yeah.
That to me is a concern. That tells me there's a bit of a disconnect between the coach and the players in this circumstance, that I think Elaine's wants to continue to play a system, but does not have the horsepower right now to do it, partly because of injuries, partly because of players coming back. And that's a big problem for them.
One other factor, and it was pretty noticeable at a few times during the game, whether it was Fox or Lindgren, because they're their top pairing, if things didn't look right down the ice, rather than trying to do what the Flyers do and make those 3 passes to kind of get in the zone, Lindgren or Fox just took the puck up the ice themselves and then looked for things to open up. And you know what? The Flyers don't do that.
They don't do that because, again, I don't think right now, and this is partly a confidence issue, Russ, is I don't think Ivan Provorov, especially right now, is playing with, I don't think, a lot of confidence.
I agree.
When he's playing confident, when he's stepping up into guys, he's giving guys a lot of space on the ice, and that makes him extremely ineffective defensively. Some of that, I think, comes from the whole rotation of the defensive pairs. Having to pair up with Nick Seeler, that's pretty, and I'm going to give Nick Seeler all the credit in the world for, scrapping and clawing and having an NHL career. You should not be up on it, playing on it, basically a top pairing.
No.
You also have a Travis Sanheim, who is also, I think, not playing with a ton of confidence right now. His partner seems to be doing just about everything he can, but he has his own
the bad turn, he was making good passes, and he had a pretty good game, other than the one bad turn.
Right, And then, of course, you get to probably the crux of the issue for Philadelphia, which is for what you get out of Keith Yandle from that third pair. Again, he's not providing enough offensive push up the ice to justify his, defensive inadequacies at this point.
I mean, he did have a good shot on net on the second power play. That was it.
That's it.
That was
but
essentially it.
And then you have to put your best defenseman, Justin Braun, down with Yandle to cover for those issues.
Yeah.
It's too many things, I think, for a team to have to think about.
Yeah. And you know what else, though? Just from an effort standpoint, what the Flyers had to do to try and keep the game close when it was 3-1, they were working twice as hard as the Rangers were just to do that. And it's hard to win hockey games that way.
And once you're down 2 goals to 3 goals against the Rangers, again, you're going to spot Igor Shesterkin, a 3-goal lead.
Yeah.
They are, you see there, even when they were 2-0, the shoulders slumped. They knew the hill was going to be too high to climb. And that's huge because that affects their execution. They were starting to get decent zone entries in the game as the game went on. The Rangers were kind of stretching themselves out, but Philly was literally a second or two late in trying to finish plays.
Yeah. Well, you can't connect on they had a 5-minute power play. They had 6 shots on goal. Like, if you can't connect on that, you got problems.
Right, but they also they're also, I think, in their own heads right now.
They are.
Well, one thing, I mean, maybe it was because there was 9 minutes in power plays that they had to kill off. But one thing I noticed is if you look at the Rangers' time on ice for their defense, all 5 of their 6 defensemen played 19 to 21 minutes. The most Trouba was 23, but it was 19, 20, 20 minutes, 8 seconds, 21, 30. The only one who didn't play that much was Lundqvist at 13 minutes, but it was all balanced. Even Patrick Nemeth.
But Michael, once you're at a 3-0 lead, you can rotate your pairs at will.
Yeah.
Agreed.
At that point. And if you're Philadelphia, they're trying to figure out, okay, which pair is the most effective? Because at this point, you just don't know. And invariably, they shift back and they have to go to 2 pairs and bring in Braun back up again with Provorov. And you have to shorten, and then you're down to 2 pairs because the third pair isn't going to be giving you much.
Now, something that fooled me in this game, early in the game, first period, we actually got a sheet. I looked at it. And no, actually, we didn't get a sheet. I was looking online. And Van Riemsdyk was leading the team in shots, and I'm like, all right, you know what? If he could do this and sustain this, maybe he'll do something, and he couldn't sustain it. Not at all.
No, and again, that's a big concern. The other big question is, again, with the amount of money and the commitment that you've spent for James Van Riemsdyk, who's basically turning into a $7 million a year checking line forward. Yes, his defensive play has gotten better, but at the expense of what made him a $7 million play in the first place. And then Travis Konecny, you just don't know what you're going to get out of him night after night.
And Anthony, I asked this to Russ this morning. It's like when you talk about Van Riemsdyk, and I know that there were comments after the game about having a power play, somebody who could be a power play sniper. That's Van Riemsdyk. I mean, I'm sorry, but you have to put him in the right place on the ice. He
has to go to the right place. Well, they put him on the ice. He has to go to the right place.
He's the bumper. He's the guy who's got to be up. He has to be the bumper, and he's not doing it.
No.
Well, okay. All I know is this: he arguably was one of the top 5 players in the NHL on the power play when he was with Toronto, but he wasn't playing a bumper. He was playing at the side of the net.
No, he was playing at the sides, but Anthony's right. Bumper, sides, you could easily go from the bumper to the net. It's not hard, but he's not doing that. He's not playing either slot.
Now, if they're telling him not to do that,
they're not telling him not to do that.
Then that's a structural problem. If they're telling him to do that and he's not doing it, then it's his problem.
I'm pretty sure it's his problem. They know how to utilize him. He doesn't know how to utilize him. Like, that's really the issue. But, again, look, Carter Hart had a good game. Maybe one of those goals you say, But, again, this is just – and I say this, and I'm not saying this as an indictment on the goaltending, but I've said it before, and like Kevin Allen had mentioned Harry Sinden saying this, like, it would go a long way if one goalie just had a shutout just to kind of say, okay, you know what? We actually could win this game on 2 goals. But with that not happening, I don't know when they're going to win again. I don't know if they're going to beat Tampa. I doubt they're going to beat Tampa. I don't even know if there will be enough changes. The fact that they gave them off today, unless the NHLPA says you have to have off today, I wouldn't have given them off today. I thought that was crazy.
All right, let's talk about
that. That is a way, and we've seen this pattern with Elaine, at least early in the season. I think this is where you think and say to yourself, this is where he's trying to still have a hold over that room.
I know. I think he's lost
and give them the day to kind of clear their heads because they didn't have that last season because of the compressed schedule. So I think that's a big part of it here. One
last thing, and then we'll move on to other games. Anthony, the name of Tocchet has popped up. Obviously, Vigneault, we just talked 7 losses in a row. How much rope does Vigneault get before we really legitimately start talking about a coaching change?
I've gone to a maximum of 10. Now we're at 9 games. I'm in that window right now. Problem is the season is going to be in a slip away. Before, again, it's going to come down to the interpretation of whether or not Vigneault, again, the old cliche of has he lost the room? Are they no longer responding to him? And I think this day off today is indicative of a coach who's trying like hell to keep some level of hold over the players and to see them through while guys are getting healthy and hopefully getting some cohesion. But the fact of the matter is, again, they pin so much of their hope, I think, on having Hayes back and having Ellis back. I don't know if that necessarily is going to be enough to fix this in and of itself.
One last thing. If we want to talk about Hayes being back, I still saw him not being able to go play flat out. He was holding up at times. Even
I didn't
at times
think he would be in the first game back, though, Russ. I think they wanted to.
We'll have to keep an eye on it.
But I expect against Tampa, he got his quote unquote sea legs under him now. So now against Tampa, they need him to really push.
Yeah,
we'll see if he pushes in the game when he had a few moments during the game where he got to scoring areas and just couldn't finish because I think there is definitely that lack, even with the practice, there's still that lack of cohesion. But to answer your question, Michael, I'm giving a max out of about 9 games right now. And if it's determined or interpreted that he really is beginning to lose the room, it might be sooner than that.
Yeah. Move on to some other games here. Just to go through some quickly here. The Canucks. Hopefully
Anthony didn't hit a pole.
I'm glad you said that and not me. The Canucks beat the Senators 6-2. Senators are really struggling right now. 4-15-1.
Mike, they're on the right track.
Matt Murray sent down to the AHL, and he hasn't played a game yet. And I heard some consternation.
You're expecting him to play, though, Mike.
Yes, expecting and playing are 2 different things. The Canucks, obviously we're in the throes of a real bad losing streak, but they get rich playing against the Canadiens and the Senators. The Red Wings
win somewhere, though, right? When you're a struggling team, you do got to start somewhere.
Yes,
Anthony
true.
Sent the message. He's okay.
Okay, that's good. He says he'll try to log on in a few minutes. The Red Wings win 4-3 in a shootout over the Seattle Kraken, who were coming off a thrashing of the Buffalo Sabres. It
does show where Seattle's at, right? The Red Wings have played well. I know they have more games in the tank than some other teams, but they have enough points to be in playoff position. I give them credit. They've gotten great play out of Sider and Raymond and a few others. I give them credit. But Seattle, it is unbelievable how their media is trying to over amplify every win like this is the start of something. And I don't think they realize they don't have the talent.
Right.
They just don't. And when you have Hackstall coaching a team that's not that talented, he is just going to try and play them harder than anything else and just win on effort. It's hard to win on effort in the NHL without talent.
Yeah, if you have effort with talent, sure, but they don't have enough talent to match the effort. No. And yeah, okay, they got a point out of the game against Detroit. Detroit was playing without Tyler Bertuzzi, who tested positive for COVID, and we'll talk about that in a second. But in this game, Lucas Raymond scores again his 10th of the season. He's leading all NHL rookies in goals and points. Mort Seider is leading all NHL rookies in assists. He's got 14. He had 2 yesterday.
Although Zegras is quickly catching up. He's in the race too.
Yes, and Dawson Mercer is doing pretty well.
Mercer's doing well. The other day I had to mention the 3 right now that I'm favoring. And again, I didn't know how it was going to go for Spencer Knight, whether Bob would be good or not. And clearly Knight's never going to play enough games to win it. So preseason, my look at Knight was like, all right, that's not going to happen, but it's hard to predict. But of course I had guys like Raymond and Seider. I didn't have Dawson Mercer in there, but he's in there right now. But Zegras I did have, and he's coming up the rear here. So it's a good year for rookies. It really is.
Yeah. But yeah, just not to belabor the point, but again, Seattle, did they do a good job in the expansion draft? Sure. It was not going to be another Vegas. That's a once in a generation situation. I mean, probably once ever that you have an expansion team go to the Stanley Cup final or an NBA final or whatever.
It's like just never tried to sell it like, hey, this is a great team. He didn't. He tamped it down. This is just their media kind of ran with it at the beginning. And you and I were talking about it. Like, look at these headlines. Like, they're expecting them to be super competitive. And it's like, you know, they went on a little win streak here before Detroit.
Well,
and everybody got carried away.
Well, we both know somebody who picked them to compete for a playoff spot. I'm not going to say who. Not me. Now the Anaheim Ducks beat the Vegas Golden Knights 6-5. Again, Troy Terry continuing his hot scoring. He's got 15 now.
Drysdale's picked it up big time. He's having a really good year. Again, if people were wondering why I was so high on Jamie Drysdale, you're seeing why.
Yeah, Sonny Milano with 3 assists in this game.
That's, again, I had mentioned something on Twitter about that because it's easy to give up on guys who don't play a 200-foot game. But when you have the speed and the ability that Milano does, you shouldn't give up on him. The same as Anthony Duclair, and both those guys are doing well. And they're doing well because the teams realize, okay, we're going to just focus on what they're good at.
Yeah. No. I mean, if you have players in the right roles, they'll succeed. Now, I don't know if this is a big concern, but Robin Leonard gives up 6 goals on 33 shots.
I mean, they're not at full strength yet.
No, they're not. But still, I mean, and it wasn't Gibson, it was Anthony Stolarz in the game yesterday. So
I'm happy for Stolarz. He's really a guy who's had a lot of injuries. It's funny because, the Flyers could have saved themselves a lot of money if they had stuck with him, but they didn't, and that's their choice. But Stolarz has turned into a pretty good backup in this league.
Yeah. The late game, the Oilers and the Penguins. The Oilers win 5-2 in spite of Tristan Jarry coming into this game, one of the hottest goalies in the NHL, and the Penguins having 34 shots on goal. They only got 2 past. I think it was Mikko, the almighty.
Koskinen had a good game.
Yes, shocking.
Although I did write about Skinner for this week because he's doing well.
Yeah, his stats are fantastic. But Zach Hyman with 2 goals now has 11 for the Oilers, which, again.
By the way, they are selling Zach Hyman jerseys in with Hebrew lettering at the gift shop in Edmonton. It's pretty awesome.
That's cool. Yeah,
I mean, especially for Hanukkah, like there's people here in the States that really want them. They're like, wow, so that's good for them. That's good marketing.
Yeah, it is. Now, like I said, Hyman's got 11 goals. That would be second on the Leafs next to Austin Matthews. Again, I don't think he
wouldn't have 11 goals on the Leafs because he would have a slightly reduced offensive role compared to what he has in Edmonton.
Right. He's now because he's with McDavid and occasionally McDavid and Draisaitl, he's a trigger man.
Yeah.
Now, a few years ago, he didn't have the ability to be a trigger man. He honed his skills, and at the end of his tenure with the Leafs, he was, a guy who could pot a goal when you needed him to. Yeah. And, both goals yesterday were from.
He reminds me of like Ken Hodge back in the day when Ken Hodge was good. Plays that role
with Espo,
the occasional goals, but Espo was getting the lion's share,
right?
And that's what he's good at.
Now, I bring this up just purely for my joy, Russ, because I looked it up. So Zach Hyman right now has 11 goals and 6 assists, 17 points, and he's making $5.5 million a year.
Right.
For $850,000, Michael Bunting has 17 points, 6 goals, 11 assists.
And does Bunting plays well in the corners, and does Bunting plays good at defense? Probably not.
No, but he's making $850,000, and he fits, and he's working well with the guys that Hyman played with last year. You're not going to.
You're not going to get a game in the playoffs, and all of a sudden you've got Michael Bunting on the line. Are you trusting that he is going to come through in the clutch?
I don't know yet because he hasn't.
You might just be getting what you pay for. He's getting him in the regular season. He got him in the regular season for Phoenix too, but we don't know. But
Arizona
rather. But we don't know what he's going to
do. Let's just say this. I think Toronto basically took the shotgun approach to replacing Hyman in the sense that, they signed Bunting for $850, they signed Comp for 1.5, they signed Richie for 2.5. Richie so far is not working.
A disaster.
Richie so far is not working out. Camp has been very good as a checking center, and Bunting is filling the role admirably for what Hyman did in the top 6. So, would they rather have Zach Hyman? Sure, but they can't afford a $5.5 million left winger. So it's
early, but so far it's good for Bunting. I agree.
Right. The Leafs.
By the way, it's a good point for Bill C. It looked like Hyman had a hat trick. Everybody threw their hats, and then the goal got called back.
Oh, nice. Now, how can
his first career hat trick?
So. How can they get those hats back?
I know
they can't.
That's why. Listen, at $30, I'm not throwing my hat for any hat trick. At $30 a hat, not happening.
Would an Orthodox person throw a yarmulke?
You can't. It's actually a sin.
Oh, that's a sin. Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. I'm just saying. I'm not mad at you. I'm just giving you the answer.
Oh, I know. No. I plead ignorance.
Yeah. That's fine.
But the Leafs, the game that I was at, was a rather enjoyable game for Leaf fans. An 8-3 shellacking of Nazem Kadri and the Colorado Avalanche.
Who's in that, Mike? Come on.
Oh, I know. Well, please. I was saying to people in the press box when I heard that Jonas Johansson was in goal, I says, this is a Leaf victory. Because Jonas Johansson is borderline NHL goaltender, and he looked all bit of the borderline yesterday. Because a couple of those goals, especially the Engvall goal and the Matthews goal in the third period, were short side blasts that he just did not have the angle on. And yes, Funky Kadri scored. He scored twice. So, but who won the game? And I wrote yesterday, and I thought wrote very well. If I were the Leafs, I would do that deal all over again. The deal now. Of course, you have to factor in that Mike Babcock screwed over Tyson Barrie in the first couple months and tried to play him like like everything Mike Babcock does. He tries to convert somebody who's strong offensively into a two-way defenseman. He did it with Nikita Zaitsev. He did it with Barrie. Some players, when they're 27 or 28 years old, they are the player that they are. So you don't try to change them. And he tried to change them, and it didn't work. And that was one of the reasons that Babcock got fired. And then afterward, Barrie was pretty decent for them. He was what he was, offensive defenseman. So Kerfoot's played pretty well for the Leafs. Kadri, it's funny. We were in a scrum with him before the game in the morning, and somebody asked him about, the trade from Toronto and, his history since then and, how he plays. And he said, I wouldn't change. I can't change the way I play. I play on the edge. And I'm like, that tells you all you need to know. So,
right, but I mean, he does realize that is the way he's going to be successful. It's like if you tell Brad Marchand, Brad, stop being a jerk. He doesn't know how.
well, okay.
And that helps his whole game.
Yes, but there is a point where, okay, Nas, play rough and tough, but don't cross-check somebody into into the boards that you could break the guy's neck or hit somebody head high like you did Justin Falk.
Okay, but if he's healthy in the playoffs, he will help the Avs greatly.
Well, maybe he will and maybe he won't. He got suspended.
Oh, come on, Mike.
He got suspended in the first round against St. Louis. They needed him.
He's been right. He didn't play. I said if he plays.
Well, if he plays, but how can he play?
He's been a good playoff performer. You know that, and I know that.
How can he play if he keeps getting suspended?
Well, he might play, Mike. So far, that hasn't happened.
Yeah, the one playoff that he didn't get suspended, he played great. But the problem is the 3 other ones in the last 4 years, he did get suspended. So honestly,
like I said, maybe he won't get suspended.
If he
doesn't, he's usually a factor.
If you're a team that goes out and spends $6 or $7 million on Nazem Kadri in free agency, do it with the fear. Do it with the knowledge that you're more than likely, when it counts, he's going to let you down. A minor trade in the league this afternoon. Malcolm Subban gets traded from Chicago to the Sabres for future considerations. Yeah, which means they gave him away for nothing. Yeah. Now, interesting, I just got a message here that the Sabres have called up Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen. And now
to be a backup, probably.
Well, Subban was with the Wolves or with the Peoria, right. Or whoever. I'm sorry, it's not the Wolves. Whoever their minor league.
Are they making him drive there? Like, why are they worried about this?
What's that?
Are they making him drive to Buffalo? Where's his next game?
I have no idea.
Okay, I'll look.
Yeah, it was Rockford. Rockford's their minor league team.
Okay, yeah.
But the Luukkonen call up is curious because, I mean, unless they're gonna go with him now, I'm just checking to see what his minor.
The Sabres are they're playing tonight in Florida. He can get a flight to Florida. So Luukkonen's the backup.
Yeah, I mean, right now Luukkonen is 6-6 with a 342 goals against and an 888 save percentage with Rochester. That's not.
You shouldn't be rushing him in there. Yeah,
now maybe. I mean, right now the goaltending is Aaron Dell and Dustin Tokarski, and it's pretty bad. So. It's very possible that, as you said, Luukkonen's the backup for whoever's starting, and then he gets sent back down to Rochester, and then it's Subban and whoever else. Probably Subban.
I think that's what's going to happen.
But I think he needs a lot more work down there, and that would make sense. I'm just looking at his stats right now, and he's played the bulk of the games down there.
Let him keep playing.
Yeah, let him keep playing and hopefully getting better. In COVID news, Jordan Binnington is on the COVID list. And I bring that up only because Jordan Binnington is right now the presumptive starter for Team Canada.
Well, we've talked about COVID and that whole Olympic thing, and it's going to be a shell game for a lot of these guys to be healthy at that time, because randomly now guys keep going on the list. So it will be a shell game. It's going to be hard to figure out.
Now, we've talked about long-term injury and some of the, chicanery that's gone on over the years. Elliot Friedman in 32 Thoughts reported that, Shea Weber is because Shea Weber is on LTIR right now. He was in Montreal for a physical this week, and it's the second time he's been asked to meet with team doctors this season. And generally, once a player is on long-term injury, like, for example, Nathan Horton, when he was traded from Columbus to the Leafs, had to come in at training camp. Same with Joffrey Lupul.
Yeah. When
he was sent to Robidoux Island. They had the medical evaluation at training camp. They signed off on him still being injured and unable to play, and that was it for the season. So the fact that he has been called back for a second time, they said Weber's injuries have drawn extra scrutiny from the NHL. I mean, could that be because of other teams having a problem with it? Because it's sort of like he's sort of like general body soreness here when it comes to. I mean, I'm sure it's more.
Yeah, I think it's simply because now the league, after the Tampa thing, has to look at it more closely. They sort of just let that roll. Now they can't let it roll anymore. So if another doctor finds that there's a chance that Weber can actually come back and play, then that may affect them how long they can keep him on LTIR.
Yeah. Want to touch on this because I saw this, and we'll just discuss a couple names here. Frank Cervalli at Daily Faceoff put together a list of the top 15 players that he believes will be in play before the deadline. And some of them are names we've discussed. Some of them are names that have been discussed over the last couple of days, like Jake DeBrusk. So there's no point in really talking about that. Although Jake DeBrusk, for all the rumors of 12 teams being interested, he's making over $3 million. He's not putting up big numbers. Apparently, the Bruins had talked trade with St. Louis last year. This is something that Elliot Friedman and Jeff Merrick talked about on their podcast, and they offered apparently the same package that St. Louis traded to the Rangers for Pavel Buchnevich, which was Sammy Blais and a second-round pick, and the Bruins didn't think that price, that return, was anywhere close to what they needed for DeBrusk. And the question I ask is this: okay, DeBrusk is not getting along with Bruce Cassidy. He's not performing up to expectations. So how can you be, how shall I say it, over demanding when it comes to a return for him? Not to say you give him away for pennies on the dollar, but if he's not working out there, okay, then you have, if you're the other team and you have to pay that guy $3.6 million, then Boston has to assume some of the risk in terms of taking a lesser return back. And, I mean, if they got offered something like Sammy Blais and a second round pick, that to me would be at least a decent return. And I mean, maybe they get that out of one of these 12 teams, but I don't know, Russ. I mean,
the whole thing's become soap opera-ish too, because now his mom's tweeting and then Hags is getting into it with his mom. And then it's like, it's too much. It's all too much. I give DeBrusk credit because he's still playing. So at some point this will happen, and at some point it'll be over. They're not going to get a king's ransom for him. They're not, because he hasn't really produced in the last 2 years. So based on the fact that he's going to be more or less a rental, I think you're talking less than Sammy Blais. I think it's like third round pick and some sort of prospect. Yeah.
Now, number one on his list was Joonas Korpisalo. And let's just say this. For a team that is, I think, desperate for a really good number two, this would be a get. Korpisalo, other than the really good performance he had against Toronto and Tampa in the bubble, has pretty much been a 1B. So I don't know how much, I don't know how much Jarmo is going to expect to get in return for Korpisalo, maybe a draft pick and a prospect, something along those lines. But I don't see a team like Edmonton who needs a number one, or Colorado. Colorado is a number two.
Colorado might need him if Kemper stays hurt or whatever, yeah. Colorado is a number 2 or a 1B behind Kemper with his injury history. That might make sense. But if you're looking for a number one, I can't see teams ponying up big money or big prospects for Korpisalo. No. And what's his contract status? One more year. This is the last year. He's a UFA, a $2.8 million. So you're renting him. I mean, as a rental, Korpisalo, it's not like you're getting Roberto Luongo. So
Right.
It's not going to be that high.
Right. Vladimir Tarasenko is on the list. We've talked about him, $7.5 million more for one more year, but he's playing not as good as he has in the past, but playing effective with the Blues. And the Blues are one of the better teams in the West. So I think this is a deal that might, if he still sticks to wanting out of St. Louis.
I have not heard one word that he still wants out. Jeremy Rutherford hasn't said one word that he still wants out.
Right.
My feeling is if things are going good, he's probably going to just let it roll into the offseason, and then maybe at the draft or something you might see him move.
Right. If he still holds those.
He might, but he'll hold off because, like, why would he potentially go to a worse team? Like, he might just bite his tongue if it's all working out.
Well, I mean, he just it's probably smart for him to bide his time because if he puts up a good year, he only increases his value. Vitaly Kravtsov, who we've talked about on the Buzzcast, he's on the list. We know he's staying in Russia for the rest of this season, but he is an asset. We talked about, possibly the Rangers interested in Evander Kane, and I was going to bring that. I'll bring that up right now.
San Jose scouts at the Ranger game, but they are playing the Rangers coming up, so hard to say if that's the reason or not.
It's tough. It's tough to interpret what is fact and what is fiction out of the Evander Kane situation and everything that broke yesterday. This video, where he's pointing a gun.
Well, he's in the video.
Right, he's in the video.
There's no debating that.
Right, and apparently the video was released by his soon-to-be ex-wife's attorney.
Right.
Which apparently they were like both willing participants. So it's damning. But again, this is a divorce, and let's just say these aren't normal people. At least the way that they're acting, at least the way they've acted publicly and privately. So, and I won't draw any conclusions one way or the other. I'm not taking any sides here. It's just bizarre. And I don't know whether this adds more to the case against anybody trading for Evander Kane. I don't know. All I know is that it just seems as soon as we think that the story is over with him, there's another chapter.
Yeah. I mean, some teams might wait until this calms down now. Before this video, I thought maybe there's this little bit of chance. Now they might wait. But I still think they're doing the legwork in case at the deadline things calm down, it works out better, and then someone's willing to take a chance on them. But with this video out there right now, nobody's taking a chance on them. Not yet.
Right. Now, the interesting thing here is because we've heard, there might be teams interested in what they might want to do is since he's got 3 years left in his contract, they might want to trade him through a third team, like happened with David Savard and Nick Foligno last year with bigger contracts with teams up against the cap. Thing is, though, that those teams, say San Jose does that, they retain 50%, and then a third team retains another 50%. That would mean only 25% would be paid, say, for example, by the Rangers.
Right.
The Rangers have all the control in terms of if it doesn't work out with him, they could buy him out. And they would only be responsible for 25% of the buyout. Right. And San Jose and that third team have no control over what is done and what is not done.
No.
So, say no say so. So, though, the Sharks are taking a risk. I mean, they know what their cap hit would be if there is a buyout. So, I mean, anything that they can save on that, whatever. But I just think right now he's radioactive. I don't know if I would.
Yeah, it's just. But again, it could be different in a month or so.
Yeah. Now, okay, I have to mention this one because this is a misread on the part of Frank. He puts Justin Hall on the list. I'll just read what he says. Mrazek is coming back to the Leafs lineup, having a recent return to practice. That means the Leafs need to clear up some cap space in order to activate Mrazek off LTIR. They don't because Mrazek was on. They really haven't added much in terms of salary since Mrazek went off. They would just simply have to send back the guys down to the minors like Woll, and maybe Kyle Clifford, but Clifford already cleared waivers, so they wouldn't lose him. The one that's the problem here is when Ilya Mikheyev comes back because Mikheyev went on LTIR before the season starts. that's where they might have to make a move in terms of an extra salary. I personally do not think that they're going to move Hall. I continue to think if they're going to move a defenseman, it's going to be Travis Dermott. Hall's making $2 million.
Younger, so
Dermott's younger. I think there'd probably be more teams interested and willing to give him a draft pick because the Leafs only have 3 picks. Hall's right-handed. Dermott's left-handed. The Leafs have a player or two in the minors that they think might be ready to be, guys who could step up in case of injury.
Look, I get Tony Soprano saying he's brutal, but at the end of the day, he's got playoff experience. They're not going to just toss this guy aside. Because if they do intend on making a decent playoff run, he is going to have to be a part of it.
Well, okay. To start the season, the pairing of Muzzin and Hall were pathetic. Brutal. They really were. And when Hall was benched, he was 7 games, no points, -7. Okay. Now, since he's come back, he had played with Muzzin, he's +10 since he came back. So he's +3. So does he have points? No, but he's not supposed to. He's not a point.
He's not a point guy.
He's a big body.
He reminds me of, and I didn't love him in '94, Doug Lister. And you know what? He ended up getting a ring. He played. I didn't love the guy. Didn't matter.
Yeah, he's a big-bodied, shut-down guy. So and they only have 2 righties on their team, him and Liljegren, and they're not trading Liljegren. So. I don't think they're trading Hall. If they're going to trade a defenseman, it'll probably be Dermott. But they shed some salary yesterday by Kirill Simonov going back to Russia because they're going to send him to the minors. And I'm going to write about that tomorrow. There's very interesting trend that's going on with the Leafs when it comes to KHL imports that they don't seem to really be lasting too long. Just a couple more names.
Enough time for that right now.
Yeah. Just a couple more names here. Patrick Hornquist with the Panthers. This is the thing. I thought the Patrick Hornquist. Now he's played better than I.
Why would he be going?
Yeah, I know. I mean, they're a contending
He's not
team.
going anywhere. I think Frank's wrong on that.
Now, I mean, if they need to add in other places, okay, I get that. But he's got
guys are willing to go to the net and are effective.
Yeah, he's got 11 points in 22 games. So, and he's 34 years old and he's got a lot of wear on the tires. So I could see them in terms of wanting to bail on that contract. But remember, they took that contract back in the Mike Matheson deal, and that's the reason why. Yeah. And Hornquist has another year at $5.3 million.
Yeah, he's not getting traded at the deadline.
I think what ends up happening is they keep Hornquist through the playoffs because he's a playoff performer and a veteran guy, and then maybe at the end of the year, they buy him out if they can. I'm just seeing whether
and then he'll throw all of his Panthers gear in his driveway and throw it out.
They might not be able to. I think it's 3 buyouts, and they've already bought out 2. And
I think it is 3.
Yeah, the Yandel and Darling are buyouts. I don't know whether. I don't think Luongo is a buyout. That's cap or capture. So yeah. So they could buy him out, and I think that's what they'll end up doing. JT Miller. This is the thing. And I had a buddy of mine who contacts me and throws me these sometimes ridiculous trades that the Leafs will trade this guy, that guy, and a bag of pucks for retaining 50. If you're Vancouver, why are you trading JT Miller? He's been arguably
they're going to.
Yeah, he's been arguably their best player. Now, this is a bad year, but unless they're going through a full rebuild, which I do not and never will believe because the Aquilinis are stupid. Because
I don't think they're going through a full rebuild, and I don't think Miller's going anywhere. Just don't think it's happening.
Yeah, I mean, it would make sense. It would have
a better chance of trading Besser.
It would have made sense 3 or 4 years ago to do a rebuild. They didn't do that. So unless they maximize the value on JT Miller and they get a ton for him in a trade,
I would have put Brock Besser on that list only because he's going to be harder to sign.
Right, especially after they've signed Pedersen and Hughes to deals. Dylan Strome, we've heard his name a bunch of times.
He's exiled, man. I mean, whoever gets him, the price is going to be so low. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean he can't play. They're not using him. So it's like, I don't know. they've killed his value.
Riley Smith is a pending UFA, $5 million AAV. Again, Vegas believes they're a contender, so I don't.
With all their best players, and with all their players out, he was their best player. You really think you're going to trade him?
Now, the only thing is this a deal that they have to make because when Eichel gets activated? I mean, that might be the case since he's in the final year. You know, he might be a salary dump because they have to.
Let's see if Eichel gets activated first.
Right. The other one, I'll end on this one because I know this guy has been somebody who you've been a fan of, and that's Brian Rust. Yeah. And he's a pending UFA, 3.5 for a team that is a playoff contender. I mean, that would be a get.
And he's a playoff performer.
I mean, he right age, 29, pending UFA, so it's a rental. I mean, Pittsburgh's in it right now, so I don't know if I see Pittsburgh moving him, but if they fall out of it,
I could see it.
Yeah. So interesting list. And as we get closer, a lot of people seem to think that, and this is wishful thinking, that there will be some trades prior to the Christmas trade freeze. Again, there's so
little. What's weird about that list?
Yeah.
That Frank didn't have one Flyers player on it.
Well, there's 15. Let me see if there's.
Unless you just didn't mention.
I'm just going through the rest of it here. 13, 14, no Flyers.
Yeah, because I think Braun's in the last year of his deal.
Yeah, but who wants him?
Listen, Justin Braun is
as a 6'7" defenseman, veteran guy, sure, but
he's playing more than a 6'7" right now, so
right,
he has value.
On a good team, he's a 6'7". Okay, we'll be back tomorrow with another edition of the Hockey Buzzcast. For the departed Anthony Mangione, for Russ Cohen, I'm Michael Agello. Thanks for watching, and remember, without the buzz, it's just hockey.